Hey there, and welcome. Have you ever stared at a piece of sheet music and just felt completely lost? Like you're looking at some ancient secret code? Well, you're not that far off. Musical notation really is a kind of universal language that turns sound into symbols. And today, we're going to give you the key to unlock it. Let's just start with that fundamental question. How do you even begin to write down a sound? How can you possibly capture something as invisible and fleeting as a melody on a piece of paper? How do you tell someone exactly what note to play and how high or low it should be? Well, for centuries, musicians have been working on that exact problem. And what they developed is this beautiful, kind of elegant system you see here. Yeah, it might look a little complex at first glance, but I promise you, it's a language just like any other. And by the end of our time here, you're going to have the key to start speaking it. So every language needs a place to be written, right? A page, a screen, whatever. In music, that place, our basic canvas, is something called the staff. Think of the staff like a ladder for sound. It's just a simple grid, 5 lines and the 4 spaces in between them. And the rule is super intuitive. You climb higher on the ladder, the pitch of the note goes up. You go lower, the pitch comes down. Simple enough, yeah? But here's the problem, it's an unlabeled ladder. How are we supposed to know exactly which pitches these lines and spaces actually stand for?
Well, that brings us to the most important part. We've got our canvas, but without a key, that code is totally meaningless. In music, this key is called a clef.
And that's no coincidence. The word clef literally comes from the French word clé, which means key. And that is exactly what it does. It's a symbol you put at the very beginning of the staff that gives us our main reference point. It is the thing that unlocks the whole code. Okay, so take a look at this one. This is probably the most famous one, the treble clef. It's also known as the G clef, and its design is just brilliant. You see that elegant little swirl in the middle? That's not just for looks. It's designed to circle around the second line from the bottom. It's like a big visual signpost that's yelling, hey, this line right here, this is the note G. And once you know that, you can figure out all the other notes around it.
And here's its partner in crime, the bass clef, or the F clef. It's the same idea, just a different landmark. See those 2 dots? They're like a bullseye, framing the 4th line from the bottom. And they're telling us this line right here is the note F. So again, once you know your landmark, you can figure out everything else.
So here's the main takeaway. The treble clef is your guide for the high notes. Think instruments like flutes, violins, or the right hand on a piano. The bass clef, well, it covers the low end, for cellos, tubas, and the left hand on a piano. 2 different clefs for 2 different ranges of sound. All right, we've got our canvas, the staff. We've got our keys, the clefs. We're ready to actually start writing something. But what do the characters look like? What are the actual letters of this musical language? You might be expecting something really complicated, but the musical alphabet is beautifully, refreshingly simple. It's just 7 letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. That's it. Once you get to G, the whole sequence just starts over again. And here's where it all clicks together. Musicians have these clever little tricks to remember where the notes are. In the treble clef, the notes sitting in those 4 spaces, they spell out the word face. Easy. For the notes sitting on the lines, the classic phrase to remember is every good boy does fine. So with our G clef as our key and these little mnemonics, we can now name every single note on that staff. But wait, our 7-letter alphabet doesn't really tell the whole story, does it? What about all the notes that live in between those letters? To find those, we need to understand music's tiniest unit of measurement, the half step. You might also hear it called a semitone. It's the smallest possible jump you can make between 2 different pitches. You know, the easiest way to picture a half step is to look at a piano. It's literally just moving from one key to the very next one. Doesn't matter if it's black or white. That tiny little jump, that is the fundamental building block for pretty much all melodies and scales. So how do we write these little half-step shifts? We use these symbols called accidentals. A sharp, which looks kind of like a hashtag, bumps a note's pitch up by 1 half step. A flat, which looks like a lowercase b, lowers it by half step. And the natural sign? It just cancels out any previous sharp or flat.
You can think of them like musical punctuation marks. They add all this crucial detail and nuance to the language. Okay, so now we have all the core pieces: the staff, the clefs, the notes, and even their punctuation. So let's see how they all combine to make this language powerful enough to write something as complex as a symphony. For instruments that have a massive range of notes, like a piano, we use what's called the grand staff. It's pretty straightforward. It just combines the treble and the bass staves, and they're joined together by a brace. This gives a musician a complete map of both the high and the low notes, all in one place.
But what about notes that are so high or so low that they don't even fit on the normal 5 lines? Well, that's where ledger lines come in. They're just these short, extra little lines that extend the staff up or down. And the most famous note on a ledger line is middle C, the one that sits perfectly in the middle, bridging that gap between the treble and the bass clefs. And this is where the language gets really flexible and creative. See, once you know the rules, you can start to bend them. And that's exactly what transposition is. It's the skill of taking a piece of music and just shifting the whole thing into a different range. It's absolutely essential for making a song fit a particular singer's voice or a certain instrument.
Just look at this example right here. You've got the original melody, then you see it transposed up an octave. It's the exact same melody, just higher. Then it's transposed down into a totally different clef. The relationship between the notes doesn't change, just their starting point. It's really like telling the same story, but in a different voice.
And that's precisely what our source material is getting at. By understanding how to move these notes up and down the staff, you have just transposed this pitch to different registers. You've already got the hang of a fundamental concept that musicians use every single day.
So we've decoded the staff, the clefs, and the notes. We've even learned how to move them around. That secret code? It's not so secret anymore, is it? You now have the alphabet of music in your hands. So the only real question left is, what story are you going to read first? Thanks for joining us.